Good morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you may be. Welcome back to the second day of the Esports and Education Summit. I'm HB Duran, your host today, and this is Crybaby, my cat, who might be making a few appearances today. Um, I've been an esports journalist for many years, a lifelong gamer, and I'm just so happy to be here today. We're excited to have CDW, MSI, Evil Geniuses, Crybaby, my and cat, who might top be, scholastic esports leaders discussing critical topics today. Please continue to ask questions during the sessions and set up meetings with attendees using that network button to make the most of the event. To start off today, we have Doug Konopelko talking about how to create powerful esports partnerships. Doug is a passionate educator, leader, designer, writer, and speaker. He currently serves as the manager for the esports and education team at CDWG, one of Intel Inspire's key partners. Take it away, Doug. Okay, we're getting that set up for you here. Thanks for your patience. Hey, Doug and Josh, how you doing today?
Doing pretty good, ready to go, ready to share some of this with everyone and work through those tech issues that we all know and love so dearly.
Yes, yes, we sure do. And yeah, so did you guys have a good time yesterday?
Yeah, there were some really great
Great time.
sessions, incredible folks here who are doing great work. Really excited to be here and more than anything else, learn from everyone, who is, in those universities, in those schools, leading these incredible programs, often with just a couple folks, making the magic happen, right?
Absolutely. What's new with you, Josh?
Oh, not much. I had a great time yesterday as well. There were some really good speaking events. It was a really good focus on like coaching and hiring coaches, best practices for them. I feel like those are a lot of the questions. It's easy to say, here's how you get started. Here's the stuff you need. Here are the decisions you need to make ahead of time. But then once you have the coach, like, okay, where do we go from here? So that was really awesome to hear from a lot of like top minds in the industry yesterday, and I'm really looking forward to today. Especially there's a Minecraft session. I don't know a whole lot about Minecraft, but it's very important to our schools, so I'm always curious to learn a little bit more from that. So excited for day two.
Sadly, I think Microsoft actually had to back out last minute
Oh,
today. I was really bummed. I don't know why, but as Doug said, it's one of those things we can we can expect every time you try to do anything with technology and a lot of people coming together. But we do have some really great panels today, and I'm sure through networking and connecting, I'm sure we can still get people in contact about Minecraft. And of course, we're going to continue doing these events, as often as we can because they're just so valuable and so fun. So.
All right, so I'm not seeing anything changing in our chat about the session, so I can always just pivot here and we can go to presenting it live instead of the video. So you just let me know what we need to do, and I am ready to go. So do we wanna rotate there and go live and just present it live? Okay, it sounds like that's what we're doing.
All
Give me
right.
1 second to get it pulled up on the other screen here, and we're gonna call an audible. This is what life's all about.
Sure is.
You're
All
gonna
right.
watch me also slowly go to standing because I cannot present sitting from this chair. So bear with me at the slow rise.
It's all right. All right, I'll get off video and give you the stage.
Should I do, a sound effect as this is going up in case you can't hear it already? All right. Is my screen there? Can you see my screen? Yes. I gotta go based on, let's see. All right. It looks like you
Yes,
can see the
we can.
screen. We're plugged in and we are ready to go. Let's do it. Let's go live. Okay. So today's session is powerful partnerships for esports success. In keeping with the theme of this, first thing I really need to do is thank those people that were involved. Obviously, something like powerful partnerships does not come about just with one person. So, some of the incredible leaders that you'll see here today also played a part in putting this together and building out some of this content. So thank you to those people that were involved. Really incredible. Folks like Jesse Lubinsky from Ready Learner One, Chris Turner down at Southern University Lab School. A lot of names and folks that you'll see popping up throughout these events. The education esports community is just really, really phenomenal. So excited, in getting to work with those folks. The obligatory intro slide here. My name is Doug Conopelco. I'm the National Esports Manager for CDW. My passion really lies within education. So I'm coming up on 15 years in education. I've been a teacher, a coach, an assistant principal, a district director for instructional technology. But really, again, my heart just lies in education and the power that we get to have as educators. So a program like esports can really help us, amplify and multiply what we can do at schools. This year, I've also been fortunate enough to have a little kind of side passion project. It's due for a rebrand now with the really heavier esports focus called Focus on K-12. That's on YouTube or any podcast place, but we've started to have a lot of these great esports guests. From both here and also with Tom Dorr from the British Esports Association, that bigger, more global view, really starting to bring into focus, what makes a successful program. So, for us here, CDW is really used to acting as a hub for a lot of those things. So that's what we're trying to do for esports, right? Understanding where we need to be within the ecosystem so that we can move forward and help you have successful programs. Two of the programs that we're really proud of, we're proud of all of them. We don't want to pick our favorite child, but two of the programs we're really proud of, Full Sail University down here in Florida, the Armada. We've been partnered with them. I was just up there last week. They've got an incredible program in the Fortress. Fresno Unified School District out in California, really early adopter, really strong program. But what's most important about both of these is that they bring a lot more into esports than just the game itself, right? They look at it from a full culture of our program perspective. How can we have a deeper integration of this program around our campus with our other programs that we offer? So really quick background here for those of you that are maybe not educators. When we talk about a successful instructional program at one of our schools, there's a lot that goes into it, right? There's the research, the instructional materials. I'm not going to read this whole list to you, but basically just know that, people are thinking about what's the before, what's the during, and what's the after of this instructional program. Where are students coming from? Where are they going? What supplementary things do we have to support that work? And when we go to something like an extracurricular program, whether it's athletics, or anything else, bringing in that passion for the game for sure, but also, how do we make sure that this program is built to last? Do we have a booster program? Do we have feeder programs so that we understand where are our students before they're coming into this league? What league are they in first? So, for those of you that are a little more established in the esports area, these might sound really familiar, but for people that are just starting out, a lot of times, these programs are built on folks who, the program is basically built on passion and knowledge of the game, right? So they're a gamer, folks they associate with are gamers. They're really excited about bringing that passion and excitement to their students, but they don't really understand all those other pieces that have to go into place. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with this. I spoke with Broward County down here in Florida. I spoke with their coach of the year from last year. She was a person who really, I would say, this slide for her would say passion and knowledge of her students, right? Knew that this was somewhere that her students wanted to go, and she wanted to be able to support that in any way she could. So when we look at what are those things from instructional programs that we can bring in to help make our esports program successful, right? It's looking at things that I highlighted here in red, right, from the instructional list. What does the research look like? What is a scope and sequence? Meaning, how are we aligning what we're doing in our program, and how are we growing it over time, right? What does that progression of our program look like? How are we doing professional development or coach development or player development? So all of these things from the instructional side, but also if you look at the extracurricular side, it's everything, right? Everything from that list comes into play for esports. And when you have that many things that are generally falling on the shoulders of, 1, 2, or 3 people, depending on what you may have devoted to this at the higher education level, I would say at the K-12 level, it's usually one person doing this. We'll call it in their spare time, but those of us that have been teachers know there's no such thing as spare time. But so how are we able to do that? And that's through partnerships, right? So when I was interviewing Chris Turner for the podcast, one of the things he said was that Rome wasn't built by one man. Right? Relationships, those are your foundations in the building process. So, as we're building out these programs, what kind of relationships, incredible events like this, thank you to Intel for the support, for AVGL putting this all together. These people coming together, these are your foundation in your building process, but also in your growing process. So if this is not your first year, if this is not your third year, right? If you're a veteran in this space, there's still things we can learn from each other. And those relationships become really important. So some of those relationships we'll dive into quickly right here. And then we'll open it up. We'll do Q&A for questions after. And Josh and I will be on to answer as much as we can. But so community and local businesses. So if I'm building out a new program, there are folks local to us, to our school, whether that's at K-12 or the higher education level, that are kind of bought into our school, bought into our mission, bought into our vision. Those folks, because they're local, right, they are going to want to have more of an involvement with the program. And if we're being honest with ourselves, we go to our business partners as educators, we go to them a lot with our hands out. And I think sometimes those businesses like something that has a little more pizzazz to it. And esports definitely fits the bill for that, right? It's sort of a little bit of a sexier ask than we might have in other areas or other needs at our school, right? And there are so many important things we do at our schools that we would love for folks to get behind and to support. But one way to do that is through our community and local businesses, and one of those programs is obviously esports. Another one to look at, another partnership that we can leverage, is our existing faculty and staff. So there's all kinds of folks who already work either within our school districts, within our university systems, within our college systems that we can leverage. So we have folks that are subject matter experts. Right? They are, our teachers and folks that are already on our campuses that understand what we're trying to do when we're building a new program. But this also includes folks like bookkeepers who really understand the financial side of things and the procurement departments. And I chose this picture here intentionally, right? Because, our facility staff are folks who know what it takes to get people into and out of buildings, how to reserve spaces. They understand what's been renovated and when. So these can be really important stakeholders, really important folks to help drive your conversations about esports and also drive your program forward. Next one up is the only really named group here. NASEF and NACAD, whenever we talk with a school district or a university that's trying to build out their program, right, people are looking for free resources, but there's so much out there that isn't vetted and isn't really necessarily a strong resource. But NASEF and NACAD are great hubs for information, great hubs for connection, great hubs for relationship building. They do so much that goes beyond the game as well to help support people's programs. That they really are an absolutely vital partner in the process. And if you're not involved with these organizations at all yet, highly, highly, highly recommend those as you continue to learn and grow. Really a great partnership to leverage there. Coming in at number 3. Number 4 is your athletic directors and coaches. And I know somebody probably in the chat somewhere, which I can't see anymore since we switched to live, is saying, hey, athletic directors and coaches are faculty and staff. And you already said that. They get a special call out because these are folks who, if they're not already involved, really know a ton about what the landscape for these outside programs look like. They understand who our common competitors are, our rival schools, what it looks like, again, to reserve different facilities, how we move students around, how to procure equipment that only serves one purpose, right? So a lot of times we've got folks in procurement who understand, how to get computers because those are things they procure all day, every day. Athletic directors, they and coaches are responsible for a lot of one-off purchases and dealing with vendors that maybe other people in your program or other programs don't have to deal with on a regular basis. So definitely keeping them in mind and involved as we march forward through this becomes really important. Plus, in a lot of places, esports is going to either fall under one of 3 umbrellas, the most common of which is aligned with those athletic directors and traditional sports programs. Number 5 here, existing vendors. So if your school, if you have a list of the vendors your school already uses, you'll make your procurement people very happy if you use existing vendors that already exist for you. There's a lot of benefits to this that go beyond the obvious, right? One is, again, they're bought into what you're doing. They have, just this perspective that's a little different because they also understand your processes and how things work. Also, when you're looking for to make purchases for folks who are just stepping into esports and haven't been involved in a club or a sport or anything like that before, navigating the waters of what can we purchase and through whom can be pretty difficult along the way. And who do we go to for those different resources? The existing vendors can really help out with that process along the way. Number 6 here is the pipeline organizations. If you tuned into our session yesterday, you'll understand a little bit more about what I mean here. But the Cliff Notes version is, you have to understand where your students are coming from and where they're headed and try to build relationships with those folks. So, I talked to somebody who worked at or now works at a professional esports organization. And one of the things they talked about is that there's a big disconnect for our students as they grow over time, so that the strongest programs are the ones that, let's say it's a high school program, they understand and work with regularly the middle schools that feed to their high school, and they also work regularly with the schools that their students most commonly go to. So maybe they're community or state colleges in the area. So if you're at the college level, this may mean working closely with the high schools in your area, and then also having those connections on up to the local businesses, right, that we talked about earlier, but understanding where are students going and working after they leave our college, after they leave our university, and is there a way we can build that relationship? In talking about esports, we spend a lot of time talking about connections and relationships, and it's just really important for us to understand what the power of those relationships are. We've got a great tight-knit community, but for our students, this could mean connecting them to a mentor at the next level up. So at high school, maybe we're connecting them to a local college student who plays on their team. At college, at the collegiate level, we're looking both for our students who may end up, again, a very small portion of them as professionals, but really they're going to go professional in something other than their esport, right? Other than their gaming. So, having or being able to help them build relationships up to the industry is also absolutely vital. Finally, some kind of bring it all together resource. And, this is where I sometimes shamelessly plug us because this is what we do, but just understanding that there are a lot of folks in this space, right, who are brand new to this space where their, company is just trying to get established. And more than even a bring it all together resource, something that's a trusted advisor. So someone you understand and know and trust that's in the space that can help you navigate these waters, because one thing we know for sure is that there are new companies popping up every day, that claim to be the best at doing X, right? And tomorrow they'll be the best at doing Y, and the day after that they'll be the best at doing Z. So we need to make sure we have somebody that we trust, someone that can bring all of those things together for us and help us build these programs, especially with the constraints we have on our time and also on our people. Right? We've already established, and we've heard it as a common theme, not just in these 2 days here, but over the last few years as esports has developed further and further, that a lot of these programs are supported by just a few full-time folks, and then some student volunteers or student paid positions. So bringing that all together into one place becomes really important. There are so many things that go into a successful esports program. And even when we talk with some of the most successful programs out there, they still have things that they struggle with along the way. So whether that's understanding, the devices and those things themselves, the networking, the IT side of what's going to go into this program, or it's professional development, player development, coach development, designing the spaces, all these different things, and then also building a culture around our esports program and aligning it to either our values or our institution's values along the way. And the partner landscape is very full. So you could imagine when you have as many categories as you do within esports, you have multiple partners for each of those along the way. So navigating that also becomes really tough. So you need some folks that you trust along the way, both within the actual kind of boots on the ground coaches and directors side, but also on the industry side. So, here's our 7 partnerships for esports success. There's also an article for this that I wrote with Jesse Lubinsky, but again, leveraged a ton of folks along the way that we've both worked with from K-12 and higher education levels. EdTech magazine had a feature over the last month where they put out a lot more content around esports. Really great from a bunch of different lenses, just incredible work. And then finally, I mentioned this in the beginning, but there are some great folks who are willing to share their knowledge, their time, and their experience as it comes to esports with us. So with that, thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate it and hope you have an incredible time with the rest of Intel Inspires. If you need me, this is how you can get a hold of me or our group here at CGW. Thank you so much for the time. And how do we do? How do we do on time, Heidi? Did we nail it?
I think we nailed it.
All right.
I think we did good.
Perfect. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing then.
Okay. And I've got a couple questions for you.
All right, let me reorient myself as I hit escape here. Okay, now I've got everybody back on my screen. I'm back.
All righty. Great. All right. So the first question we've got coming in is, in addition to providing the technology, does CDW offer consulting and guidance for new esports programs?
Great question. So I would say that that's where a lot of our time gets spent. I'll actually let Josh answer this one because this is Josh's bread and butter.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I'm here for. I forget where I mentioned it earlier today, but I've been a PC gamer for over 25 years, and CDW is primarily a hardware provider. So we're obviously happy to have that conversation with anybody who needs it. But as an advisor role, I'm also here to help them kind of navigate, whether it's an esports 101 kind of conversation, or if they're a little further in that process, anything they need help with. We've worked with over 500 schools in both K-12 and high ed over the last few years, so we have a lot of experience around, who's doing what works, what doesn't, what are some of the options, what are some of the musts that we want to see in there, and just helping them navigate through that. And then if there's anything that we don't know, luckily we have a broad and diverse network of amazing people in the industry, both people who are at schools and then others folks who are at organizations like NACAD and NASIF and Boom TV and AVGL, and then a lot of wonderful manufacturing partners who can step in and offer a lot of expertise and other services and stuff as well.
Fantastic. And I actually have a question. When you think of esports programs, you think of PC. And for someone like me who is primarily like a console gamer or something like that, I'm all thumbs when it comes to figuring out what kind of requirements you need on a computer. So what advice would you give people, like if they like, I want to play these games? Can you help walk people through that process to make sure they meet those requirements, or what kind of research can they do to help their decision making?
Yeah, that's a great question. And yeah, helping navigate through, what range of hardware do we need? Obviously, a lot of it's going to start with what games are you playing. All games out there have minimum recommended specs. You can look them up individually and kind of figure out, where your threshold is. I'm also happy to make recommendations to folks, or I usually provide kind of a good, better, best, so they can see the starting and the ending point that they need to hit. And other things that we'll want to keep in mind, is this going to be a multi-purpose space? If we are doing PCs, or do we have classroom software that we need to keep in mind that maybe has higher recommendations for their specs? Because a lot, if we're playing League of Legends and Rocket League, those aren't very hardware intensive games, but maybe there's some classroom stuff going on that we need to be mindful of. Once we kind of have that information, like I said, work on good, better, best options. We kind of talk and narrow it down from there. And it's a conversation an ongoing conversation that we have with the school until we can kind of figure out what's going to make the most sense for them.
That makes sense.
And I have a resource guide also that kind of has our getting into cleats minimum specs and kind of gives an idea of what that range looks like and what you're getting out of going into higher tiers and stuff that I can I don't know if we have a place to share resources like that, or people reach out to me in the app, I'd be happy to send it to them as well. It's just a PDF.
That's great. Yeah. Looks like we have time for one more question. What are the common misconceptions you see about what it requires to build a program?
Ooh, that's a good one.
My favorite is...
Go ahead, Josh.
My favorite is when you can tell that somebody's been talking to the students about what they need, and then they get on the phone with me and are like, do we really need to buy these $3,000 computers? And I just laugh because I'm like, who told you that? The students are out there telling them we need an i9 with a 3090, and they want to go all out and don't realize what it costs. There are some misconceptions though, and we want to help bring that down a little bit and realize, we can get by with an i5 and a 1660 Super to play a lot of these titles and do a lot of different things in these programs, or maybe we start a little bit smaller, prove the concept, and then worry about growing into, we don't have to start with a 20 PC room right away, things like that. So, there are a lot of misconceptions about how high we need to go or how big we need to start in order to be, doing it right. The other thing that I would say real quick, and I think Doug had something he wanted to add, so I'll throw it over to him, is these titles, especially when we're talking about in the competitive landscape, we're more about performance and efficiency with our hardware than we are about overall aesthetics. Having a prettier game may slow you down to the point where you're at a competitive disadvantage. So let's be keeping that in mind. And along with that, that means we don't necessarily need to go after that i9, 3090 and stuff, because we're just going to be turning those settings down anyways.
Yeah, and the last thing I'll add really quickly, is that one of the misconceptions when you're starting a program is that there is a perfect roadmap to having a successful program, but really you've got to take into account so many existing factors within that school and within that landscape that there isn't just like a do this first then move to this, right? It really does help to have somebody like Josh, who's done this hundreds of times with all different schools and understands what are the different parts and pieces and how they play together, so that you can build a program that'll last.
Great. Well, thank you so much for that. We're going to head over into the next panel discussion. Thank you so much to everyone in the chat. Keep those questions coming. Up next is changing the path for underserved communities. I hope you'll join us.
Thank you.